Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to Murkwater Construction Site. So today we're going to work on a ferry station pier type thing, and the first couple of houses, or buildings at least, for the stilted houses and walkways between them. So a theory behind this one is that somewhere out in the direction we're looking now, on the other side by the road, there's another pier, kind of ferry station type thing, possibly with a bell or something on there, that they can ring to call a ferry over so they don't have to wade through the water, as it's all irradiated and nasty. Have to make do with a rowing boat, which is not entirely realistic. It'd probably be a punt or something more with a shallower draft, I think that's the phrase, rather than a rowing boat, but we'll use what we have available. So this is a USO object. I've got a few different types of piers of varying states of disrepair. So we're going to just slide one of those in. We will support it in a moment. And begin setting up our little walkway. Fortunately, the game provides us with a number of quite convenient pieces to do this with. So we've got these shack bridges, and the shack foundations work quite well as well. It wouldn't be too hard to manually create something, but as it's available. So we'll nudge that a little closer. And that's lined up quite well. The edges are sufficiently soft that it works quite comfortably. So I'm not quite sure what I'll do after this, because once I've built these two houses, the idea will be to continue the principle around and throughout most of the settlement. But it's the same basic idea, it's the same techniques, and I don't know whether or not to show you more of that, or move on to something else and do most of the building off camera, as it's, as I say, mostly more of the same. But for now, put the staircase on first, as it allows us to get a better idea of the height, and the collision works for us then rather than against us. Hopefully it should be okay for pathing, but we shall see. Nice to be back in a normal settlement. I can actually put settlers in for a change, so hopefully this place should look a little more alive than some of the last ones. I don't think I'll use too many doors. I might use a few, but I'm not using any on this one. It'll be relatively open. It'll work with the style of the build quite well. Get the feeling of people just walking around all the buildings and freely wandering about the walkways. So we can use a few half walls to create those openings, and to give a certain sense of rigidity and make it feel a bit more solid. Fortunately, this one I think is catching on the roof there, so I'll rug glitch that into place in just a moment. There we go. Try not to fall through it. It's on there. Yeah, these half walls are particularly soft most of the time, but I think the roof may be less so, which is what's causing the problem there. There we go, got the corner sorted out. Not keen on that one. Go for that one. Mixes up textures a little better, because most of what we have in place is plank based anyway, rather than board. So I'm going to attach a little bridge sort of off this opening in a bit, actually off camera, but it's just there so you can sort of see the idea. Although I'm not actually going to build further off in that direction on this occasion, we're going to go in the other direction. These posts, as you can see, are just custom vanilla assets wire fence posts, as they're the best single pieces we have for now. Would like something a little more in keeping and a little sturdier looking, not quite as blocky as the ones in the barn tab, preferably with a similar texture to the wood tab, but use what we've got, as I say. This one, unfortunately, did not want to sit very close to that railing there. I don't know if I'd have taken it off, put the thing in place, and it would have snapped back on maybe, but I had a feeling it probably wouldn't, so. Still, ramshackle's the order of the day, so we'll see what we can do. Right. Let's get some legs on this little pier. And the thing decides to actually group select. There we go. So I did try initially using the shack supports, the sort of things you see in Hangman's Alley, and you'll see me using it in a bit for something else. But unfortunately, I think it's just a little too low. So, and then you've got the cross beams underneath as well. like this one here, that were just getting in the way, and even if I could get them in, it would just leave a bit of a gap between the legs. So we went with this one. I had wanted to use this particular technique to try and support the end of the pier, but unfortunately the build limit is somewhat inflexible, so we'll just put it as close to the edge as we possibly can and consider that end dead space, unfortunately. There we are. And it's just a case of repeating the same thing on the other side. I did put that fence there to indicate that it's not actually supported and that it's not very safe beyond that point, but I didn't like the look of it, so that'll come out later. So, rowing boat, as it's the most suitable thing we have. This thing is much bigger than it looks. At a glance it looks quite small, but it won't fit in any of the buildings up there, unfortunately, so I'll have to come up with a cunning plan on that front. They tend to sit flat on the ground and ignore the water, so you'll find if you just put it straight in place, the thing's basically full of water, which is obviously not ideal, so hence the group select to get it into place. Fortunately, that wasn't too bothered about the edge of the build area. Get a couple of posts in place just so that we can have something to tie it off to. I've actually used some conduits and cable to fix it in place for now. We'll see how I feel about that later on, but it does at least make the boat look like it's tied up anyway. So, that's basically the main structure of the pier. So we move on to the next set of stilt houses. I did want to use this bridge, so it's in place on the other side later. Sort of unconnected at one end for now, but it didn't fit here. It was kind of too long, connected straight to the ground, so I've used this shorter one, which evidently has been updated recently. As not so long ago, the only way to place this particular one was to snap it to one of the other bridges, the vanilla one to be exact. But it'll now place on its own, which is cool. Do this on a bit of an angle, get a bit of a more organic look to the thing. You can see the corner there that we're going to try and run the walkways around. Either in a later part or off camera, we'll see what happens. I did actually set out to build this bigger than the final product, but I decided it didn't look right. It was too square and a bit uninteresting, so as this was quite happy to play ball, I can go in there and we'll work with this sort of L shape. So we're going to mix and match, make the thing look a bit ramshackle. Get some walls in there. Unfortunately, we're having a slight issue there and I can't get the roof to go in, because even though there's a gap in that one, it still thinks it's solid, so... These flat ones, however, much more forgiving, so there we go. I spent a ridiculous amount of time just kind of spinning around and looking at this thing, trying to figure out where I wanted to go with it and what I wanted it to look like. There we go, nice and easy. Get a window on this back wall. So one of the ideas I've got for either the next video or a subsequent one is a water purification setup. So they'll need somewhere to get their water from, which I think will be in the centre. So there's a sort of pond over sort of right of where we are now. Little build order issue there. Yeah, and it'll allow us to set up a water purifier and hopefully have it connected to the walkways and create a bit of a set piece out of it, which should be quite fun. Got some good ideas for that, I think. Now, get this wall into place. For some reason it didn't want to play ball. I should nudge it a bit closer in a moment. There we go. So, onto the remaining side. Group select that in, because unfortunately it doesn't seem to want to sit too close to the edge of the wall there. It's not sticking through. Good. Get that rug out of the way so we can actually furnish properly in a bit. We'll use some corrugated steel, iron, whatever it is, just to mix up the textures a little bit there. It's not quite where I want it. I've got it sat on the corner there because the gap that I'm trying to slide it into is just a little too small to straight rug glitch it, so this works. There we go. The trick when you're group selecting these into place, these ones are the vanilla walls that snap in, is to make sure that the object that you're using as an anchor is either equal to or below the bottom edge of the object to be glitched into place. So it's a bit awkward. You can use just about anything for it. I happen to use a barrel on this occasion just for convenience, but it's a bit fiddly because the ground's very uneven around here. Unfortunately, I can't just put something in place and then take it away to do that with, because everything flies all over the place, but we managed with a lot of fiddling around. Right on the edge of the build limit here. It's being surprisingly cooperative here. So these are those shack supports that I was talking about before that I wanted to use on the pier, but I couldn't. Obviously, when you put them in place, they disappear into the ground. That's the only place they're going to snap. Well, the only place they're placeable, so. This particular warehouse support beam is slightly taller than they are, so it'll stick down lower, which allows you to group select it, just like this. Concrete pillars the same height, so as it has to be sticking out the ground, unlike those wooden things, it's actually useless for the job. This works quite well. Get as much clearance in there as we can and slide that into place. These things are just about firm enough on the edges that they won't clip through, but they're a little picky on how close you can sit them. Well, that's good enough, I think. The next one into place. Unfortunately, because of the edge of the build area being where it is, and the size of the thing, it didn't really work using another set of those, so I just tried a few different things and ended up settling on this. I was going to use something a bit more improvised. I'll slap a couple of boards down, complete the walkway, then it'll be decoration and on to the tour. So, short and sweet, the finished decorated product. As I say, the final thing's going to be a lot more of the same, so whether or not I'll do it on camera, I don't know. Let me know how you feel about that, and as always, for any suggestions you might have my way, I'm always interested in hearing them. That little chair is actually a modded item that provides a fishing station as a sort of food producing resource, so I'll have somebody assigned to that later on. The little tiller on the boat there, I just used a wire fence post and a horizontal plank from USO and just group selected them together and pushed them into place, and it came up quite well. Put a couple more trees in just to make it look a little bit more organic. Some fairly basic furniture and decoration. There's a fish gutting station there on the right that will also serve to produce food. Essentially, I think this place is going to end up producing a vast quantity of food. There we go. So, as you can see, it'll carry on out of here and around the back of the building. We'll put some more stuff out there eventually, and hopefully cut through the gap between them and around the other side as well. So we will see what we do with that in a later part. Take a quick look around the outside and back over to the ferry station. So thank you very much for watching as always. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. If you'd like to keep up to date with everything going on the channel, you can find social media links down in the description. And I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.